Hi everyone, today we're going to go over my Viper controller setup. I did do the Pictomancer video already, so do check that out when you have a chance. Before we get started, here are a few reminders. This video is not a rotation guide, though some basics will be mentioned. This is a controller button layout guide for a setup I created. Building muscle memory takes time, however if you're not feeling it after a week or two, my style might not be for you, and that's okay. You can still check this out as inspiration for ideas. There will be a macro setup in the description if you want to use macros to automatically populate your cross hotbars. With that out of the way, let's take a look. This is what the setup plays like. The Dreadwinder combo starts on the right side, but then moves to the left side. The other combos that can start with either Steel Fangs or Dread Fangs are on the right side. You will notice the buttons are duplicated on the left side as well, so technically you can use that side too. However, that's not why they're there, but I'll talk about why a little later. The placement of these actions does mean that the top action button is a charged action and not a more repeatable action, which is unlike my other setups where I often have a common repeatable weapon skill there instead. But there is a reason for this that I will cover when I talk about positionals. If you're new to controller or new to my setups and you want to know which bars to enable, how to place them on the hotbar, how to edit your hot layout, and more, I would recommend checking out the Pictomancer guide where I go over all of this as well. It would make the videos very repetitive if I included that for all of the job setup guides. Anyway, Serpent style is on both sides of the D-pad since the standard combos are on both sides. Twin Fang and Twinblood are also on the D-pad on the left side where Hunter's Coil and Swiftskin Coil are. They are placed to sort of match the action that first combos with them, where the top action button will start at the top D-pad and the side action button will move to the side D-pad. Leg sweep is a roll action and placed where it exists for other jobs already. And back on the right side we also have Writhing Snap for your long range movement action. Next up, let's talk AoEs and go to the expanded, which is pressing the left and right trigger together. The AoE actions are strategically placed to mostly match their single target equivalents, with the only difference being the charge action is on the D-pad. There is a reason for this as well, and that's because of the generation actions. On the double cross hotbar, which is the bar accessed by double tapping, you will find Reawaken. Using that will change various actions into generation actions. This will be first generation, second generation, third generation, fourth generation. Once you do that, you have the choice to either go on the primary's left side to hit all of those buttons, or to go to the expanded. This is why the placement of the equivalent actions is very deliberate, so that the order remains the same regardless of how you got there. It's why Steel Fangs and Dread Fangs are repeated on the primary. Don't forget to weave your legacy actions in between once you unlock them. The Generation and Legacy combos are good for both single target and AoE, and I suppose I should also mention that at level 96, Reawaken will change into Ouroboros, which is also a very strong multi-use attack. Let's talk about other actions on the double cross hotbar on the right side. I already mentioned Reawaken. There is also Serpent's Ire, which lets you use Reawaken without having to get energy for it in your gauge. We also have standard roll actions, arm's length, and feint in the same location as other melee jobs, and we also have the jump ahead action Slither in a location often used for jump ahead abilities. That leaves one more skill, and that's Uncoiled Fury, which is a powerful attack for both single target or AoE, so it makes sense to have it on the double cross hotbar where it's visible regardless of whether you're on the primary or expanded. However, it does weave into Twin Fang and Twinblood as well. And it was quite inconvenient to go from the double cross hotbar back into either the primary or expanded to use them, so I put them into the remaining spots here to make them easier to access. That leaves just a left double cross hotbar with the remaining roll actions and limit break, in the same locations as other jobs. Let's talk about remembering positionals. Viper did mess with my positional reminder rules that exist already in other jobs. For the other melee, the flank is on one side of the cross hotbar and the rear is on another side of the cross hotbar. We're talking left versus right side. That does not work for Viper because the actions for the main combo change instead of being separate actions. However, I came up with an alternate method of remembering. First, let's look at the charge combo. Once it moves to the left side, the button that's on the action button left is for flank. So it's on the side of the action buttons, to hit the side of the boss. The action that's for the rear is on the top action button, so think of the boss needing to be right above you. However, there are also positionals as part of the Steel Fang and Dread Fang combos. The first actions in those combos have no positional, and technically the second actions don't either. However, the second action is what determines the positional of the third action. So I place the second action based on what position it unlocks. Let me illustrate that slowly in action. Button 1. Now the options for button 2 light up. These don't have positionals, but let's press the 1 on the location for rear. But now the finishers for the combo all show up as rear. Let's do it again. Button 1. Now we have button 2, which does not have a positional yet, but let's press the 1 for the flank side, and now the finishers all show up as flank. So the pattern for all three actions is to think of the side buttons as flank and the top and bottom actions as rear. Let's talk about sprint. You might notice I don't have sprint on my cross hotbars. This is because it's hard to find a good spot that fits all jobs, as some jobs have very high button counts and use up the button spots that are free in other jobs, and I don't really want sprint to end up in different locations for different jobs. So I put sprint in my right analog stick's clicking button. To use sprint this way, we have to go to system configuration and enable it to use either macro 98 or 99. Once you pick one, you need to place the sprint macro there. If you have any trouble seeing the macro on the screen, I do have it in the description as well. However, you might still want to see the sprint cooldown, and that's where I would recommend putting it on a regular keyboard hotbar that is shared. You have to use a mouse or the virtual mouse to do that. If you want the gauge, I typically place those in the middle of my cross hotbars. I always tend to use simple mode because it makes them smaller and easier to fit, and you can edit that in the HUD layout by going to the gauge and entering the gear icon to turn on simple mode. Before I sign off, I just want to talk about my thoughts on this job. Viper didn't click with me as quickly as Pictomancer did. It took me a little while, whereas Pictomancer was pretty much instantly loved by me. I have some friends who had the opposite happen. Viper came easily to them, but they struggled with Pictomancer. I guess it's probably one of those things that varies by person. However, once I understood Viper, I found it to be a lot of fun and the setup came naturally. It also does an interesting presentation of its 1-2-3 combo, but it is still a 1-2-3 combo. It does make me wonder if they'll be changing Monk to something like this in the future. I did read Yoshida's statement that some players found Viper to be busy, so I was surprised when the changes made in the 7.01 patch were just distance changes. I honestly thought they were going to remove the positionals from the charge combo, since that one involves doing a positional and then a double weave, then doing another positional and another double weave. I also want to mention Viper's job gauge, which I did not find to be as useful compared to other jobs, specifically the twin source part of the gauge. I do understand its purpose is to allow you to keep doing your basic combo without having to look at buttons. If you memorize a pattern, you can know which version of the combo is needed. However, I found that to be much more effort than just looking for which buttons are lighting up. Plus I have to look at my hotbars anyway to see my cooldowns. I suppose this might be more useful for someone who uses keyboard hotbars to track cooldowns, and might have such hotbars placed closer to the middle of the screen where the boss might be. I could see that being useful for someone who mains the job for Savage and Ultimate content and needs to be looking at mechanics more intensely while also keeping track of a changing 1-2-3 combo, if they're willing to memorize a pattern. However, you could honestly never look at the gauge and be just as informed. Anyway, that's it from me. Let me know what you think of this and whether you liked or are planning to main Viper. I'm going to work on Astrologer next, I think. Until then, have fun with Dawntrail! Oh, and of course, like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Bye bye.